Yeah, I would totally agree with you. I think my reservation is, in honesty, how AI is coded, how it's created, right? And the fact that when you look at that industry, has not been a great industry for diversity and
Yeah.
inclusion, which tells you something. And having worked in the startup space now for several years and made a lot of connections in this space with other DE&I softwares and solutions, I think one of my biggest concerns is that when I look at those companies, and if you're a buyer of a product, I would encourage you to do this as well. There are any companies out there. When I look at their teams, they don't have anybody on their team that has actually held a diversity, equity, and inclusion position, and that
Mm.
is dangerous because these topics and what you're trying to do when you try to code for implicit bias or these things, you really need an expert in the room to be able to inform, and they
Yeah.
need to be on the team. And I always think, like, when I see stuff like that, it really makes me question uh, what made them start this in the first place. Like, I love the initiative, but at the same point in time, I think you really need to have some, who you work with matters, and having that expertise on the team is really
Absolutely.
important. Fantastic. I will jump off of my soapbox now. But the last thing I kind of want to talk about before we get into kind of the missing piece for diversity, equity, and inclusion is this idea of coaching and bringing along leaders and experts, right? We've kind of talked about it a little bit up to this point, but I think I really want to get directly at it, which is this: how do you coach a CEO, an executive, a manager to a point where they understand what diversity and inclusion is, but more importantly, what to do and how it's supposed
Yeah.
to look?
Yeah. I mean, so coaching is incredibly important as an approach, first of all, because the premise is that you want to empower the chief exec or the senior leader to be able to drive change for themselves and for the organization. And if you go in and you start telling senior leaders what to do, you immediately meet a wall of defensiveness and a wall of fear because they're worried about saying the wrong thing or doing the wrong thing or causing offense or causing embarrassment. And and that doesn't help anybody. That just does not inspire the change that we need to see. And I always remember when I did my kind of executive coaching training that what there was this kind of important understanding that you have to meet people where they're at and then hold their hand and take them on the journey with you. And you can only do that through coaching. You can only do that through by being curious, by understanding where people are currently at, what their fears and insecurities are, what their aspirations are, where they want to go, and the step and help tease out the steps that they want to take to get to the end result, rather than being told what to do, because they'll just run in the opposite direction, unfortunately.
I think that's so true. And I really like what you said about fear. And I've found that that's
Yeah,
such a big thing for leaders, right? Is that they understand it's the right thing. And that's actually not necessarily what the problem is.
yeah,
Oftentimes getting them over the fear. And something that I always, I didn't coin it, Jason did, but it's be present,
yeah,
not perfect. And it's funny when we say that, leaders literally, like, they almost tear up because it's like, look, we're not asking you to be perfect. We're not asking you to always say the right thing. We know you're going to say the wrong thing. But what's important is that we stay present
yeah,
and we move forward and we learn. And to your point, we meet them where they're at. It's just so incredibly important. I love that you
yeah. And I
said
think
that. It's
there's
so
other skills
important.
as well. Like my team and I got together recently where we were kind of brainstorming what our values as a team are, and the values that we want to hold ourselves accountable to. And we were kind of running through the clients that we love working with and really thinking about the qualities or attributes that they've got. And one of the things that came out was really around that humbleness and and being able to um, take ownership when if you do put your foot in it, for instance, and to say, look, what, I'm really sorry, I said the wrong thing, I put my foot in it, but you know what, I'm going to learn and we're going to move on. And whereas, but the opposite to that is somebody that gets really defensive and doesn't have that growth mindset.
I think if any of our listeners are started with a consultant and you want to be like, how do I engage in this in a really meaningful way? What Toby just said is
Yeah.
exactly how you do it. You're humble, admit when you're wrong, just say, oh, I put my foot in it. Like, and let's move on. And we're here to help. Like, we're here to help you get past that, to learn from it. And you would be surprised how many people give you a lot of grace when you just say, hey, I'm sorry. Like, didn't mean to say that. Did not mean to offend you.
Yeah.
Like, I'm working on it. Versus like you saying
Yeah.
like, I don't know why you get offended by that. I don't know why, like, I didn't mean it that way. You know who
Well,
I am. I'm not like that person.
and you
It's
practiced
a
it
little different.
perfectly earlier before. Like, you asked me how I like to talk about disability. And it was just a really, the way that you presented the question was just really natural, very kind. And that's the way to do it.
Thank you, Toby. I always think if we can't practice what we're
Yeah.
preaching, then what are we doing? Right? If we don't, I don't have all the answers to everything,
Yeah.
diverse inclusion, and I
And we
won't.
get it
It's super.
wrong. I don't know about you. I get it wrong on a weekly basis. I do say the wrong thing. Sometimes it's intentional.
Yeah.
But most of the time it's not.
Yeah, exactly. I put my foot in it all the time. I love it. Well, Toby, I think that's a perfect segue to our last question here, which is the question we're known for, which is, when you look at diversity, equity, and inclusion, what's the missing piece? We know there's never one missing piece, that it takes it takes a lot of different pieces. But in your mind, what's the one thing that we should really be focusing on?
So I'm hugely biased in this question or this answer. But for me, it genuinely is connecting diversity and inclusion to that business strategy, or the inclusive growth piece, as I've kind of framed it. Because so many organizations are treating it as a box ticking exercise, or the ampersand, as you say, the extracurricular activity. And the reason why I called the book Inclusive Growth was because I haven't yet met a business leader who doesn't want to grow their business or organization in one way or another. I've worked with police forces. A police force is not a commercial organization, but they want to grow. They want to have better policing outcomes. They want to be able to report better data back to government. They want to have better relationships with their community. I've worked with retailers who just frankly just want to sell more stuff on Amazon, and that's growth for them. So, first of all, the organization needs to understand, how do we want to grow as a business? And then how is inclusivity going to help us accelerate that growth, do a better job at that growth, tap into new markets, better empathize with our diverse customer base, reduce the cost of our attrition or turnover by keeping our staff happy and engaged. And that's for me, that's how we connect the dots up.
Well, I co-sign everything that you just said. That is absolutely amazing. Well, Toby, before we head out, anything you'd like to promote, anywhere people can follow you?
I mean, the best place to find me is on LinkedIn. So just connect with me on LinkedIn. Send me a message if you want to have a chat. I've also got a website where we've got loads of information. I've got my own podcasts. There's loads of free resources on my website if you want to kind of check them out. So my website is www.mildon.co.uk.
Fantastic. Well, once again, Toby, thank you so much for coming on the Finding Diversity podcast. We really appreciate you.
Thanks for having me.
Coming on, and thank you to our listeners. Yeah, of course. Thanks, everyone. Thank you for listening to Finding Diversity, the missing piece. You can expect new episodes monthly. And if you like the show, please subscribe and leave a review wherever you get your podcasts. This helps others like you find the show. Finding Diversity, the missing piece, is powered by Cape Inclusion. It's produced by Studio Deed Podcast Production, directed by Prescott Wong, and hosted by me, Justice Thompson. To learn more about how you can get started and to book a demo, visit us at capeinclusion.com.